we're back with our next webinar, and very happy to see you here on a Monday evening. And today we're going to talk about selling, and this will be very suitable for you if you are planning on selling and marketing your property. And of course, you might also be attending this webinar if you are planning on whether should this be a right season for you to even put your property in the market. So today's webinar is all about TOP projects, but of course, if let's say you are currently owning a resale condo that has already passed its TOP stage and is already in maybe its 4th, 5th, or maybe even the 10th or 20th year, this webinar will also be suitable for you, because later on we're going to talk about some of the key techniques and strategies on maximizing your exit value of your current property should you intend to put your property in the market in the year 2023, and what are some of the tips and strategies that will work as a home seller's positioning. Now, we're going to dive in on the first part of this webinar to talk about the first portion right here, is that we're going to explore what is the best time to exit your TOP property. And I'm also going to define what do we mean by TOP, what do we mean by CSC, and some of these key terms. And a quick shout out for some of the freebies that we will be giving out at the end of this webinar for our webinar participants, is that we're going to release this research that our PLB research team has came up with. And this basically tabulated with the TOP appreciation percentage of certain TOP projects in each defining districts. Now, a quick disclaimer on our webinars is that our webinars are meant for educating purposes, and of course it's sharing of opinions as well as our research that our team has done. And of course, do make sure that you do your financial prudency check before you purchase any property. Of course, and if you were to put your property in the market, do of course speak with your relevant consultant. Now, so quiz time. And for the context of our webinar, if you have any questions, you're free to key in your question in our chat box below. And what we'll do is that at the end of the webinar, we're going to tabulate all the questions. Our team is going to answer the questions as well, and we will send out a FAQ PDF right towards your email using the email that you have signed up with for our webinar series. Now, the first quiz for tonight is that we want to discuss this question on when should we sell our TOP condo in 2023. Now, a quick definition is that this year there are going to be about 38 projects that will receive its temporary occupation permit. In short, we call it TOP date. It also means that this is a date that the developers will actually inform through the lawyers to the first-hand purchasers of a new launch development to come and collect their keys at the brand new home. So basically, if you have purchased a new launch maybe 3 to 4 years ago, once you receive the TOP letter, this will be the date that you're going to collect the key from the developer. You will then walk through the home, and then you will start to check for defects, submit to the managing agent, and of course then the defect so-called rectification work will start. And of course after that you can renovate, you can move in, or you can start to rent out, or you can also put the property in the market for sale as well. Of course, if you want to sell your property before TOP, that's also doable. That's considered the sub-sale portion. And just a quick so-called insertion into the chat box to see some of your answers is that do you think it is the best to put your property in the market before TOP? Meaning that, let's say if you have already bought a new launch about 4 years back, but you don't want to wait until the key collection date to put your property in the market, you want to maybe commence the selling process. And of course, the buyer that is intending to buy a home, they have nothing to look at because the site is probably under construction, and they probably can only have a look at the site plan, the brochure, the floor plans, and they have to sort of buy virtually because the show flat has also already been torn down for most of the projects. So if you want to put a property in the market before TOP, you will have to sell virtually, and the buyer will also have to buy virtually. Now, if you are going to put your property in the market right at TOP date, that means that the project has been completed, everybody has collected their keys, your buyer can come and view the place physically. It's going to be a brand new home, nobody has occupied. And of course, for new launches projects, when you put a property in the market right after TOP, what a buyer is going to get is that they are going to get a brand new product that nobody has lived in before. The only thing they need to do is just to put in their lights, their curtains, shift in their furniture, and then of course they can take possession. They can even take over your 1-year defect warranty period. Or do you think the best time to sell your property is actually 1 year after TOP? Because maybe you will be thinking, should I let some of the transactions take place first and maybe I can fetch a better price 1 year after TOP. So this question relates to the objective as a homeowner that we want to put a property in the market to find the best timing for a maximum exit value based on percentage gain. Of course, we have to take into consideration time as well. For example, if you wait 1 more year, does the increment make sense compared to the next home that you want to buy? So for example, if the next home you want to buy is a landed home, do you think that it's better to wait 1 more year to sell this TOP project and then to buy a landed home, or is it better to do it now? So we're going to discuss that as well. So hope that you have keyed in your answers to this small quiz, and some of you might be in the first so-called thought process. So maybe you're in the thought process that you should always sell before TOP because you want to sell ASAP once you clear your 3-year seller stamp duty period so that you can quickly buy the next new launch and repeat the process if this happens to be your investment property. And of course, some of you, maybe you are in the reinvesting strategy, or you might be having a accommodation with maybe it's a family property or it's a parent's property. You're in the reinvesting kind of style and you want to keep investing in new launches. And you think that there's less competition so you can sell higher and better. Now, some of you might also be in the second school of thought that at the TOP date, that's the best because the buyer can see the actual product. It'll be easier to sell compared to before TOP. And the next buyer can own the brand new product compared to if you were to sell 1 year later. Because 1 year later, if you were to rent it out, you're also going to have some level of so-called like latency, in the sense that sometimes when you rent out the property, if you want to arrange viewings for your buyers to come and have a look, there might be a little bit of friction because you have to suit your tenant's timing. The place might start to wear off in terms of wear and tear, and the condition might not be as prime as at the TOP stage. So, of course, the third school of thought is that the rental prices has jumped so much in the last 2 years, and maybe you thought that, hey, let me rent out and let me sell while it's being tenanted, and I want to sell with tenancy. So I also want to enjoy the good rental, and or I might want to move in for 1 year and then enjoy the property first before I put it in the market. So of course, there's no right or wrong. You can actually do in either fashion. But the key that we want to discuss today is that at which point of these 3 pivot will make more sense if, let's say, you're contemplating or in a dilemma situation. So this is the main context of today's webinar. And then, of course, if you're in this third school of thought, one thought process that might go through your mind is that will rental go higher in the year 2023? And because 38 projects will hit its TOP stage, and of course, in terms of the existing supply, plus this new supply that's coming into the resale market, out of these 38 projects, how many percentage of the owners that are taking keys will actually put their property out in the rental market? And thus, will this create more supply to ease the current rental situation? And of course, when a lot of these owners take possession of their keys to these 38 projects, some of them might be renting right now for the past 2 to 3 years, and their lease might be hitting its completion soon. They might then exit these rental properties to move into the brand new properties as well. So this would then be a new fresh supply that will be available for tenants or expatriates to rent them in the rental market. So will this also then start to see a more stabilization in terms of rental rates? So these are some of the things that we just want to put into our thought process first. And a quick shout out on the start of our PLB webinars is that this year we're going to do 23 different webinars. This is already webinar number 6. And our style of webinars is that there's no products push. It's mainly for knowledge sharing. And in the event, if we do have any collaboration with developers, we are going to put the developer and the project name in the title of our webinar as a form of transparency. And of course, we will still do our best for a research and review approach. So our perspective of our webinars is that when there are no collaboration, and predominantly most of our webinars has no collaboration, we're going to do really very deep knowledge sharing based on our research from PLB research team. So quick introduction. My name is Melvin Lim. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, thank you and welcome. I'm the co-founder and CEO of PropertyLimBrothers, and under the PropertyLimBrothers brand, I run and manage two different companies, PLB Realty as well as PropertyLimBrothers Media. But our guys work hand in hand together. And today, of course, with me will be Marc Chan, who is our Director of Sales. Let's welcome Marc. All right. Later, I'll bring Marc in again to talk about the second portion, and I think he'll be very excited to share with you some of the exciting case studies that we have, and of course, tips and strategies if you're intending to put property in the market. Now, this is our fabulous team. We're made up of about 118 wonderful teammates, combining from HQ team, media team, as well as our realty team. I myself have been in the market for 16 years, and I co-founded two companies. I'm still very active and very passionate about the real estate market. Personally, analyzed and filmed more than 926 home tours out of the 1,700 plus videos on our PLB channel. I have 4 children, and I myself am a property investor, and up to today, I still love to invest and as well as analyze different kinds of real estate. Now, a question that we want to discuss today is that what are some of the key factors that is going to affect your decision on pre-TOP, TOP, or 1 year after TOP. And later, I'm going to explain to you why we selected these 3 criteria, especially the 1 year part. Now, next question is that this is correlated to this, because if let's say you're somebody with a perspective that 2023 is a year of uncertainty, and you feel that the market is going to come down this year because of maybe a risk of technical recession, or maybe due to the banking crisis in US, due to all the different kinds of global uncertainties, then maybe you are thinking, okay, I need to sell ASAP because there are so much global uncertainties. There's bank collapses in US, Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and of course, like there's a lot of issues from the cryptocurrency market, Credit Suisse crisis last month, as well as all the different kinds of global crises that we're seeing on the news today. And of course, interest rates seems to be still pretty high at this stage in time, as well as a slew of all the different kinds of measures. And this was the most recent wealth tax that was being done just a couple of months back. And now, of course, just the basic buyer stamp duty has also increased for higher quantum properties. But of course, sometimes when we look at headlines like this, what we want to share is that when we deep dive into the key metrics and numbers, sometimes by understanding macro, it will then help us to understand a little bit more about micro, and it helps us to ascertain our decision and elevate certain kinds of unnecessary fears in our perspective. So for example, if you are somebody that is in the range of buying something at about $2 million range, you will find that actually the key difference in the buyer stamp duty after the increment in the BSD amount is actually $5,000 only. Now, if you are in the range of $3 million, the increment is at $15,000. So compared to a perspective that, hey, now stamp duty is at 5% or 6%, but actually if we were to deep dive into the numbers, only when you go for a high quantum amount, then the difference is becoming more significant. So for anything that is in the range of about 3 mil and below, I would say that the increment is pretty insignificant compared to what we've seen on maybe just a lump sum figure like this. Now, of course, in the past 1 month, we've also got news from a lot of our banking partners that stress tests internally in the bank has increased. This is the current stress test level. So this will definitely affect everybody's borrowing capacity, because something that MAS want is that they want financial prudency. They want to ensure that everybody purchase a property with and within their limits, and to ensure that your monthly mortgage is not going to be a stressful thing. So they want to make sure that on top of the 25% down payment, on top of the 4 to 6% buyer stamp duty, which is about 30% already, your TDSR must be in a very healthy range before they will allow you a certain amount of loan for your next property purchase. And these are things that are not new to all of us, because we are already so used to 13 to 14 rounds of cooling measures. And the reason why we are talking about this is because we are now in a stage whereby Singapore has passed all the different kinds of reactions to cooling measures, because we are so used to ABSD, we are so used to seller stamp duty, we are so used to all these rounds and rounds of cooling measures. And that is also one of the reasons why, even though with 13 to 14 rounds of cooling measures, but as we can see from the last crisis in 2020 during the pandemic, all three types of residential properties are still rising gradually and in a very strong fashion. Of course, over the last 12 months, we can see a slight tapering of growth, but the prices are still growing. And this is the landed price index, this is the condo and apartment price index, this is the HDB price index. All three are still growing per quarter on a certain percentage basis. Now, you might also be so-called astonished to see that actually, based on the latest UBS insights, is that Singapore is actually not even cross the fair value range in the world indexes of the real estate bubble risk. And in fact, a couple of countries are overvalued, couple of countries are fair value. We're actually at the last tier of the fair value, just surpassing the undervalued zone. So compared to a lot of global cities, we are still in a very fair range in terms of real estate bubble risk. Quick so-called recap as well, if this is your first time joining us, is that we always talk about this that will happen in the next 7 years, is that there's going to be 50% Singaporeans, 50% foreigners out of the 6.9 million population that we have. And it's very important, if you have the financial capability, you have the down payment, and if you are contemplating whether to switch to what kind of assets, the key is to find the asset that is harder in fashion. So harder means that the elasticity of supply to price relationship is more inelastic. So for example, landed properties are the most inelastic, meaning that when price increase, there's no way that the supply can be increased because the supply is pretty fixed at 73,000 for the past 15 to 20 years. Condominiums, even though year-on-year basis, there are new launches, new government land sales, but taking a look at what is happening this year, there are 47 new launches, but there's only an increment of about 12,000 new homes, bringing the total to probably about 350,000 homes. So it's still pretty inelastic, and condominiums has an international audience. And why am I sharing with you this is because later, one key element is that we want to share with everybody that you do not have to sell hastily and you do not have to worry about the market because Singapore is so different. We are viewed globally as a safe haven, and I think our government has done such a great job in the sense that we have such a high ownership rate in the entire world, with more than 90% of Singaporeans owning their own homes. And this city and this country is not a country that that's reacting differently in terms of demographics. Now, why do I say that? Is because certain countries, they probably have, like for example in US or Japan, they have about 50% home ownership rate to maybe about 60%, but 40% of their demographics are very used to renting within their own country, and they're very used to not owning properties. But in Singapore, it's different because on our Asia demographics, everybody has the aspiration to own their own property. And thus, if you were to time the market, especially if it's your primary residence, you're going to lose out eventually, because if you keep paying rental and our rental rates are not cheap, what is going to happen is that you'll find that after renting 4, 5, 6 years, that amount that you've already paid and sunk in rental cost is going to be a sunk cost. That amount can actually contribute to a down payment for a new home. And of course, we know there are different situations because some of you might be in a stage that you are actually accumulating your down payment savings, and of course, it's not easy to kickstart into a private property. So, all in terms of different seasons, you can probably start off from a BTO or maybe a resale property and eventually upsizing to a private property. And of course, today's topic is not about that, but the key is that we want to share with everybody that we are in a season in Singapore right now that we have so many rounds of cooling measures. Our prices are still at a certain level. There's no way our government is going to withdraw any cooling measures, because the moment they withdraw any cooling measures, a lot of liquidity, foreign investors are going to flood in to buy our properties. Singaporeans ourselves are buying up our properties, and based on statistics, last 3 years, the percentage of foreigners that actually buys the residential property in Singapore is only about 4%. 96% are being purchased by Singaporeans and PRs. And thus, do not sell your property hastily. Do not sell your property if you want to time the market. And of course, that's our personal advice. We are also of the notion that you don't have to worry about selling because you want to time or catch the market at a low, and then you go and rent and you try to time the market, because technically there's also no current fire sale in the market. If you look at what's happening in terms of the amount of listings on portals, there's no fire sale. Everybody's selling their property and putting their property in the market at market price. And you should only sell your property if you are very clear on the next asset that you're re-entering into. And thus, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this will then lead us on to the charts very quickly. And we just want to reintroduce this 4-quadrant with everybody. Is that if you understand the current quadrant that your current asset is in and the quadrant that your next asset is in, this is going to help you to make very wise decisions moving forward for you and your family. Now, we segregate certain types of properties into Q1, 2, 3, and 4 based on high growth and as well as the behavior of the rental yield. Now, landed properties are being classified into Q1 because landed properties are higher quantum, but they are very high growth because landed property is a class of its own already. The owners of existing landed homes has very high holding power, and they have enjoyed appreciation over the years. They love the space. There is almost very little fire sale. There's also a lot of what we call old money, in the sense that a lot of the landed owners, they have been staying there for the past 20 years. And of course, there's also a lot of legacy. They pass on in terms of inheritance to their next gen, or their next gen would then redevelop, tear down, rebuild, sell in the market, and or they would just enjoy using the multi-generation home. So it is considered a high growth but low rental yield asset type. Now, small condos and apartments, fantastic for rental yield. We call it a dividend play. It is low growth because of the sheer size of its smallness. So, for example, if you buy a one-bedder at 495 square feet, even if, let's say, you were to see appreciation of $200 per square foot, you are only going to see about 90,000 in terms of gain, which is not very significant because you have to factor in your stamp duty, your bank interest rate and stuff like that. But it's fantastic for rental. So of course, I would say that small condos also fall into the spectrum of low growth, high rental yield if you buy the correct one. So they either deviate between Q3 and Q4. So just a quick classification on some of these types of properties is that we usually classify for our clients to identify the next asset type that they're going to go for. These are just some illustration examples. So today, we're going to analyze charts. And at the start, we talk about a quiz, right? So I asked everybody to participate in the sense that, you know, which are the stages that you think is more favorable to put your property in the market. Should you be a current owner that's currently owning a property that's going to reach its TOP stage? So perhaps you bought a property at launch, maybe 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years back, and you're going to collect your keys this year. You're one of the 38 projects owners. And before we deep dive into the chart, it's good to ascertain a few key kind of acronyms, right? So the launch stage, basically at the start, is where you go into the show flat, or maybe there are some balance units. But take note that right now, if you purchase any home after 2017, you have to fulfill 3 years seller stamp duty, all right? So progressive payment, kickstart, usually construction period is 3 to 4 years, depending on the size of the project. And then you'll hit this stage called TOP. Now, this is, of course, the stage that the first-hand buyers will receive the keys from developers. And usually 9 to 12 months later, we hit this stage called CSC. We call it the Certificate of Statutory Completion. And of course, this is also the stage that your full installment will kick in. So what do I mean by that is that if this is your first time buying a new launch development, you actually get a little bit like an installment holiday here, because at the stage of the TOP date that you receive the key, you sort of get to enjoy a 9 to 12 months period that you actually pay a lower amount of installment right here. So if you notice, the installment here and at the date of CSC is different. So The reason is because the final disbursement is not dispersed yet. It's only dispersed about 9 to 12 months later after you collect your keys, and then you kickstart your full installment. Of course, before that, this is what we call the progressive payment, which will only be billed to you depending on actually the building stage by the developer. So that usually takes place across 3 to 4 years period. And this is just an illustration of a $2 million new launch property. So now that we are clear, let's move on to the charts. So we actually came up with a couple of charts here, but these are the summary charts. And what we're going to do is that I'm going to kickstart this further expansion, because this is going to be very important for our discussion. So in our discussion, our PLB research team has deep dived into a couple of very, very popular projects over the past 5 years. So we are going to kickstart from 2018, 19, 20, 2021, 2022, 5 years of analysis. Some of the very, very popular projects that will launch over these 5 years, and we're going to look at their behavior and see if there's a pattern for us to learn from that, and whether it is applicable to 2023. And we hope that this will help you as an existing owner of a new launch. Now, launch, TOP, 3 to 4 years. TOP to CSC, 9 to 12 months. CSC and 1 year from CSC, these are going to be the context of our research. So we're going to look at the appreciation on the average per square foot from launch to TOP, from TOP to CSC, and from CSC to 1 year later. Now, why is it that we don't want to do 2 years, 3 years? Because the moment that we stretch to 2, 3, 4 years from the statutory completion, then the research becomes less meaningful. Because if you stretch through time, you're going to see better and better performances, because especially with the slew of uptick of real estate prices from 2020 to 2023 that is being propelled from the pandemic, from quantitative easing, from liquidity. And of course, we don't want to expand that into like a 4, 5, 6 years kind of research period. And the key rationale is also to see this decision factor, because if let's say I want to own a property that is going to reach its TOP stage, I might be maybe aiming for another property. So for example, my family, maybe after waited for 3 to 4 years, maybe during these 3 to 4 years, we started to, look at maybe other types of projects, or maybe we are thinking about, hey, maybe we need a little bit of a bigger space. We want to move to a landed home. And what should we do? Should we sell at TOP, before TOP, or maybe wait 1 year to let the price go up first, and then we exit, cash out, and then buy a landed home? So maybe you are in that stage, or maybe you're in the stage that you feel that, hey, we have bought a 3-bedder, 969 square feet 3 years ago, but now our family has expanded. We have 1 more child, we have 2 more kids already during this 4 years period, and I don't think we have enough bedrooms. I think we need at least a 4-bedder, or maybe a penthouse, or a bigger resale property that has not too much of a balcony space. I want to go for an older development. And you are contemplating that. But you're thinking about when should you put your property in the market to exit at the best exit value. So that is the reason why we want to compress that into these parameters to make the research meaningful. So this is actually coming from your point of view, in your perspective, because we understand some of the real needs on the ground. For example, this project that we're putting it right here, we are trying to hunt for the preferred exit timing. So from launch to TOP, should we sell here? Should we sell before that, like some of these owners here with the blue dots being transacted? Or should we sell at the CSC stage at these blue dots? Or should we sell 1 year after CSC? Which is better? Which one will give us a better gain in terms of percentage versus time? So we're going to talk about ROI, all right? Now, let's have a look at this example, Commonwealth Tower. So we have illustrated 2 lines, and of course we're putting a lot of fine prints right here so that everybody can understand a little bit how the PSF was being calculated. So for example, May 2014 was launched, the first new sale. That means the first launch happened in May 2014. Averagely, during that first month, so if you look at the F explanation, basically F explanation means that it's the average PSF of new sale transactions in the first month that is at about $1,617 per square foot. And all the way until the last sale, Basically, this last sale in the last month was in October 2017 before the developer saw everything. So through this period of about 3.5 years, there was a 9.67% increment in the PSF level. So technically, the PSF actually went up over the period of this like 3.5 years because the developer sort of increased pricing. And of course, if you were the last to purchase, you have entered at an average of about 1,774 PSF. Now, let's talk about the top chart here. Top chart records in totality all the new launches that were transacted, and we put it here. So basically, all the 3.5 years of transactions here average out at about 1,691 PSF. We explain it in C, average PSF of all new transactions. Basically, from here until CSC, that is actually seeing about 15 sub-sale transactions, and that's lodged in an increment of 13% averagely to an average of about 1917 PSF. Now, how do we ascertain this? Basically, we ascertain this like this. If you look at Commonwealth Towers, launch was here, CSC was here. Now, what is CSC? CSC means that there was a change of sub-sale to resale. Now, take note that all these sub-sale comprise of a period of properties that were sold before TOP and after TOP. Because after TOP, it is still considered a sub-sale transaction. Only when it hits CSC stage, then it's considered a resale transaction. So for some of you who have maybe access to some portals or maybe like squarefoot.com and stuff like that, you realize that sometimes it's a little bit confusing. Now, new sale is very clear-cut. New sale means directly from developer. Sub-sale means that it was actually transacted during the construction stage, but sometimes even after TOP, where the owner already received their keys, you are viewing a physical property, you buy the property, that is still after the sub-sale stage. Now take note that as a buyer, when you buy a sub-sale property, even after TOP stage, the legal fees are actually a little bit higher because your lawyer needs to charge you a little bit higher legal fees to do the sub-sale transaction. And then only when the statutory completion is being given, then it's being lodged as resale. So take note that when we talk about sub-sale transactions over here, all these comprise of transactions that were done before TOP and after TOP. Now, this means that it also includes that 9 to 12 months period of transactions that happen here. So we are going to look at all the sub-sale transactions here, and then after CSC. So there's only 2 points of comparison. Just to recap again, all this includes at TOP, after TOP, before TOP. All this includes after completion. Okay, so now that we are good, sorry if it's a little bit confusing, but take note that later as we go along, it becomes clearer and clearer. So I'm going to show you the second example. Okay, so let's have a look at Sims Urban Oasis. Sims Urban Oasis, first new launch sale transacted in the first month, 1396 PSF. The last one was done at 1459 PSF. Took about a 3.5 years period. There was a 4.55 increment in terms of prices from developers. So sometimes it also means that, you know, the earlier you buy, you gotta enjoy a little bit of game. But of course, we are all in different seasons. Maybe 2015 you were not ready because your property, maybe your HDB property has not hit its MOP. You cannot sell also, and maybe you can only start selling in 2017. You can only buy in 2018. So of course, that's all good. Now, what we want to achieve is that, is it better for me if I were to own Sims Urban Oasis as a new launch owner? Is it better for me to sell here before TOP and right at TOP? Or is it better for me to drag on and sell 1 year after I receive completion? So if you were to look at this, actually, if of course everybody have a crystal ball, everybody will want to exit during the TOP stage. Because if you were to wait longer, there was actually a slight dip in terms of PSF. Because during this period, the market was not doing well. We just entered into COVID. But of course, if you were to drag longer until 2022, then there was a recovery. So this was the chart for Sims Urban Oasis. So technically speaking, if you were to sell at TOP, you already enjoy a 20% gain from your purchase price averagely. if you were to sell 1 year after CSC, basically there was like a slight dip right here in terms of the average PSF being transacted. And of course, if you were to held on until now then you sell, you will see a lot more gain. But of course, this is not meaningful in our discussion because we want to see if it makes sense to do it in this very tight period here at TOP or maybe 1 year after completion. So also we need to bear in mind the behavior of some of these comparisons was a little bit different because last time there was a 4-year seller stamp duty period. That is also the reason why you see a lot more transactions happening here, because some of the owners that bought during 2017, 2018, they have to clear 4 years and wait until 2021 and 2022, then they're allowed to sell. So that behavior during Sims Urban Oasis period was a little bit different. Now, of course, you only need to fulfill a 3-year seller stamp duty period. So let's move on, and then later on I'll summarize for everybody. Okay, so for Symphony Suites, we'll just look at the top chart. Basically, if you sell at TOP, you only enjoy a very little gain. But of course, if you were to drag on 1 year after a CSC, you get to see a total of 8.73%. So in this case, it will make more sense to actually sell 1 year after CSC. Now, Kingsford Water Bay, in totality, it will be better off to sell actually at about TOP stage. And of course, this is Citygate, better to sell at TOP stage. Principal Garden, at this stage, basically they already achieved a 12.33%, but if you drag on 1 more year, they only see another 1.86%. So what does this mean? This means that if, let's say, you are going for the next property and you are in a dilemma situation of whether should I sell before CSC or after CSC, then it will be based on a few key decision factors. So let's have a look at some of the key decision factors, and I'll quickly summarize that for you. But let me just move on with the charts here, and I'm going to maybe come to Park Rivera first. So Park Rivera, basically, if let's say the owners were to sell before CSC, they already achieve a 13.10% gain. But 1 year after CSC, actually there's not much increment. So it makes more sense to actually exit during the TOP stage. This is the example of the PSF movement, so you can have a look at this. Basically, 12 months after CSC, you can have a look at the PSF differences. There's not much of an increment right there. It's still about 1,004 plus PSF hovering at that range. And I'm going to look at Park Place Residences. Park Place Residences, that's a little bit different because if you have waited just 1 more year after CSC, you can enjoy actually a double gain compared to selling at TOP stage. So Park Place Residences owners, if they have waited just 1 more year after CSC, they could have enjoyed a totality of about 16%, which is quite a fair bit for this development. So let me just come to this final conclusion here very quickly for you, because as you sign off with the freebie chart, we're going to issue the freebie chart to you as well with some of these summaries. So we have summarized 2018, 19, 20, 2021, 2022, and we are trying to conclude for some of these charts. And then we find that actually there are a few key things that we need to look out for. So let's have a look at 2018. 2018 was a situation whereby a lot of the owners were in the seller stamp duty period of 4 years. Now, during this season, of course, that was before the whole sharp rise in real estate prices that started from the year 2020. This was like before COVID. And of course, if we were to look at these charts, some of these projects, or in fact most of these projects, it will make sense to actually exit at TOP stage. But of course, there was like an outlier, Symphony Suites in Yishun. It makes more sense for the owners to hold 1 year after CSC so that they can at least get an 8.73% to have a meaningful exit if they want to. But for example, like Sims Urban Oasis, 20% upon CSC is fantastic. Commonwealth Tower, 13% upon CSC is also fantastic. And then, of course, when you look at projects that were TOP in 2019, basically, it sort of have like a fine balance approach. And of course, I would say that the projects perform differently at different districts as well. For example, have a look at Botanic at Bartley. In totality, if you have sold at CSC, 15% gain already. But if you have waited 1 more year, you only achieve another 4%. So what does this mean? This means that at 2019, if you're thinking to switch to a landed home, and let's say you have the capability to switch your landed home after exiting from Botanic at Bali. Maybe you have bought a 3-bedder right there, but you felt that there's not enough space. You want to buy a landed property. You have been in a much better position if you have exited right in 2019, because 2020 was a year that landed property started picking up, and they were being picked up at a very, very fast pace. And back in 2019, Inter Terrace, you can easily buy something at about $2.5 million in the same D19 district near to Botanic and Bartley, that is freehold or triple nine years in nature. And I'm talking about like maybe 1,600 square feet land Inter Terrace as freehold. That was only at $2.5 million. So if you have sold it at TOP, quickly enter into a landed market, then it makes sense for you. So let's come to this quick conclusion. The conclusion from these charts, after we have deep dive into close to about 25 projects over the past 5 years on the TOP behavior, is that the appreciation and the valuation depends on these two items. Firstly is that did the developers progressively increase their PSF over the launch period? Because if they do, they technically help you to lock in your profits if you happen to be the first few owners that entered in the first 1 or 2 years. Sort of like the gain has already been built in for you. So if you were to have a look at some of these charts here, for Park Esta, if you have bought in 2018, 2019, by 2022, even without selling, the PSF has already rose by 29% because the developers were progressively increasing the price. And thus, take note that in Singapore, valuation is achieved with the last few transactions within the same project. So every time that a valuer want to do a valuation on your unit, when you want to put your property in the market, and you call your banker, they're going to look at the last 6 to 12 months of transactions, and usually they will take the last 6 months of transactions as a gauge to gauge a valuation for your particular unit. So having a higher PSF that's being lodged in your own project is good news for your existing unit. And if you were to come back here, transaction volumes are also important, because if there are no transaction volumes, that's going to be detrimental to your project. And thus, when we look at our mode analysis in PLB, we always want to make sure that transaction volumes are healthy. So for example, like if you were to look at Park Esta again, there were 85 transactions before TOP and after TOP. So before CSC, there's already 85 transactions, and you get to see a further 20% gain. So imagine you were somebody actually over here. You already see that kind of gain that you want to lock in. Now, let's come back to this part. So first two things that we observe is that if the developers progressively increase PSF, that's great news for you. If transaction volumes is healthy, that is a key important factor. We also need to notice that now the gain curve is different, because now most of the owners only need to fulfill a 3-year seller stamp duty. So this also means that there are more people that might want to exit once they fulfill 3 years. And thus, that's an important consideration to take into when you want to put your property in the market. Because if, let's say, majority of the people have purchased in, let's say, for example, 2020. So now it's 2023. If majority of the projects were being sold in the new launch that you own in 2020, this means that this year, a lot of the owners that were with you have already fulfilled their SSD period, and they're going to put their properties in the market. And these are some consideration factors, because if everybody were to put their properties in the market one shot, there's going to be more competition. But that also means that there's going to be transaction volumes that will be lodged in this year for your development. So these are just some key consideration factors that later on Marc is going to share with you more in terms of competition level. Third consideration point is that you need to time your next stage. So if your next property is a growth stage, that means if it's a larger asset, then your strategy is different compared to somebody that is in their consolidation stage. So if you are in your retirement years, and this is going to be a new launch that once you sell, you're going to downsize to a smaller quantum property, that strategy is very different if you're going to upsize. And I'm going to summarize for you very, very soon. And fourth thing, do not do this. That means do not sell your TOP condo and then adopt this mindset of renting first and trying to see how the economy is doing in 2023 and 2024 by renting 1 to 2 years, and thinking that you should only buy when interest rates goes down next year or maybe in 2025 after Fed pivot, because your viewpoint is going to be on the flip side, and it is in conflict with the sellers of the next property that you want to aspire to purchase. Now, if you want to sell a TOP condo, your TOP condo, as we have seen from the graphs, is that it might still appreciate gradually through time. Over 1 year after CSC, 2 years after CSC, it might still appreciate through time, because take note that your TOP project is a brand new product that is very enticing to a lot of people. Brand new project, tenants wants to rent, people want to buy, because there is this category of buyers that do not want to buy new launch because they do not want to wait. There's also a category of buyers that do not want to buy resale properties because they don't want to buy something that is older. There's also a category of buyers that only want to buy properties that nobody has lived in before because they want the brand new effect. And thus, your TOP property is actually a very precious commodity and a very precious asset. And you don't have to hastily sell it. You should actually hold on to it if, let's say, you have not planned out your next purchase. So please do not sell your property hastily. Do not just quickly put your property in the market just because you just want to time the market. You're reading about, whether is there a technical recession, my price is going to come down. Okay, later I'm going to explain in depth with you again why your price is going to be stable. So your TOP condo might still appreciate gradually through time. And if you were to go and rent first, you are technically paying rental for nothing, because the next 2 years, rental is going to just pay down the drain. You're just going to service the mortgage for somebody else. And you are basically exiting from an asset that might appreciate, and then you're actually pumping rental for the next 2 years. Now, take note, if you pay a rent of $5,000 a month for your family, 2 years is going to be $120,000 of cash. And this is cash. It's not even CPF, right? And if you were to have this mindset that you want to buy when interest rate goes down, it is also in conflict with the sellers and developers. If your next property is going to be a new launch, next property is going to be a landed, next property is going to be a condo, the mindset of existing sellers and developers is that they're going to increase the price when they flip on the newspaper that they see that interest rate has came down, because they will know that buyers have higher purchasing power. I'm going to raise my price. So everything that you are planning in this direction is in direct conflict with the sellers of the next property. And thus, you should do this if you are not sure what to buy next. Firstly, hold on to your property. Don't sell first. You can move in. You can rent it out. You can just hold it. All right? Use the rule of 3 as a research point. And then once you're very sure of this rule of 3 research, then you kickstart the process of selling and buying concurrently. And you have to complete this preferably with like a mindset that, okay, I'm going to kickstart putting my property in the market, but I want to make sure I re-enter and buy my next home within the next 6 to 12 months, because I don't want to be out of the market for so long. And the longer you're out of the market, the longer you might be priced out if the market were to just drastically move upwards. So what is this rule of 3? Rule of 3 basically has a very simple step here to help you. And these are actually some of the things that we actually share with our clients to actually help them in their journey. So basically, if let's say this is your primary residence, firstly, do not time the market if it's your primary residence. If this is your second or third investment property, you have a little bit of luxury to time the market, definitely. So we're referring to a primary residence. Now, rule of 3 means that if you are here, select 3 districts that you like. All right? Out of these 3 districts, deep dive into each district, 3 condos within each district that you like. And that will make up 9 condominiums. And then deep dive in these 3 districts, 1 landed enclave in each of the districts. And now once you have deep dived that, you have a clearer kind of perspective on the target areas that you want to buy into. And then you can kickstart and commence the selling process. And of course, you can also view the targeted listings concurrently. But you have to also adopt a mindset that all these listings, if they are actual genuine listings in the market, they might be sold tomorrow. They might be sold next week or next month. And you have to adopt the mindset that all these listings will come and go. There will also be fresh listings out in the market over the next 1 to 2 or 3 months. But your selling must take precedence first, because now we're in a season whereby buyers have choices this year, because there are 38 TOP condos, 47 new launches, there are resale properties, buyers have choice this year. This is a year whereby there's a tug of war between sellers and buyers. And thus, you don't want to take additional risk by buying first with a long option period, putting more option fees like 2-3%, and then asking for 6 months option period, because you might need more time to exit your current home. So because of the ABSD, because of a 75% bank loan and TDS and stuff like that, selling must take precedence first, but we do it concurrently. That means once a potential buyer put the option fee for your property, exercises the option, you can then place the option fee for the next home. And Marc is going to talk about that later. We also shared this case study before on our PropertyLimBrothers.com Insights editorial channel. Basically, we talk about the conundrum of selling and buying in a hot market. And of course, just to summarize it for you before I pass on to Marc, is that if your next asset is higher in quantum value, the best time to exit is at CSC or at TOP. Basically, during this season here, that is the best. Now, my own personal viewpoint is that if there is no so-called like a home that you have already targeted or you're in negotiation with, only if you are in a negotiation season with, let's say, a landed home that you want to buy, a penthouse you want to buy, a resale condo you want to buy, and your property has not hit TOP yet, and you are very sure you want to buy that property, then by all means, sell before TOP. Because as long as your next asset is higher in quantum value, it makes sense to exit either here or here. Now, if your next asset is lower in quantum value, then it makes more sense to drag on, because your TOP property is still going to gradually increase by a couple of percentage points 1 year from CSC or even 2 years from CSC. And the reason and rationale is because if, let's say, this property is worth $2.5 million and you're planning to downsize to a $1.6 million resale home because you want to reduce your mortgage, you want to pay it off, then it makes sense to actually let this property grow more in terms of its valuation before you exit, so that you can maximize the exit value. Now, so a quick update on the current market. 38 projects are going to TOP this year. We also shared these two charts. If you, I'm going to throw this in the freebie as well. Cephas, please help us to take note. This TOP projects list 2023, so you roughly know what are some of the projects that will TOP. The current TOP asking prices, we have also tabulated average asking prices and the average transacted prices of some of these projects that will TOP this year. And basically, these are the average asking prices as of March 2023 based on what we see on a regional basis. There are also 47 new launches that will be launched this year, plus minus, and these are the average launch price, as well as resale condominiums, average PSF, and these are the transacted PSF across different regions. So basically, this year, we are in a tug-of-war situation because as a buyer, you are also spoiled for choices. And thus, it is very important to understand the fact that positioning and marketing is very important if you want to exit for your current home. Because your target audience, meaning your potential buyer, is going to ask themselves this question. Is that they are going to ask themselves, what should I buy? A lot of clients are also asking us, Melvin, what should we buy? Should I buy a new launch this year? Should I buy a condo, TOP condo, or should I buy a resale condo this year? Even you yourself might be asking, after I sell off my TOP condo, what should I buy next? Should I buy another new launch? Should I buy a resale? Should I buy a landed? Right? And because of this closeness in PSF of a TOP property as well as a new launch, this sometimes can come a little bit confusing for buyers on the ground. But of course, they can be different audiences, because some buyers, as mentioned just now, is that they want to move it immediately and they want brand new TOP projects. And that's how we need to position your home if you want to put a property in the market. Now, a quick quote before I pass on to Marc is that the moment you decide to put your property in the resale market, your property becomes your product. So as a home seller, if you want to maximize the exit value, you have to understand that your property becomes your product. The moment you put it in the resale market, you're going to compete in the space of all the resale listings, because your property is no longer a new launch property, it's now in the resale market. And you need to compete within the same development, within the same district, for the next correct buyer that you want to attract with the right buying power. And thus, it's very important to differentiate your property among the rest of the resale listing. And thus, positioning and marketing is extremely important, and that's what PLB believes. Now, quiz time, and I'm going to pass on this quiz time to Mark. So, Mark.
All right, this is a very good quote by Melvin himself. So we're going to move into quiz time right now. So one of the most questions that we get is on the ground from home sellers is actually what is the most common problem home sellers face when they're actually selling their properties, right? So we have three options here. The first one being you get little or no viewings. Second one, you have lots of viewings, but there's actually no firm offer. And the third one is actually you got many offers, but all of them are very far from your expectations. Right, so you can key into the chat box that we have here. All right. Okay, so moving on, I think one of the things that's happening, I think in the marketplace previously, before I think PropertyLimBrothers actually started this whole home tour presentation, was that a lot of agents in the market simply we take photos and then we just post it up on portals, and then we adopt something we call a wait and see approach. Of course, there's nothing wrong with this. It's just that right now the industry has changed. Consumer behavior has also changed, right? So we're going to talk about the three problems we looked at earlier in the quiz. So the first one being there's little or no viewings, right? So what do we mean by this is because a lot of the times when you put your listing onto a property portal, right, with just pictures. I mean, back in the days when all of us were marketing properties, we all used our handphone, take pictures, we post them on property portals, right, and we adopt something we call the wait and see approach, right? So consumer behavior has changed. A lot has changed in the marketing landscape of real estate in the past couple of years, right? So if we dive into and look at problem number one, which is when you get little or no viewings, what is actually the main reason for this? So let's have a quick look. So first one is that you're taking pictures and posting them on portals. Some of the photos, as you are looking around on Property Guru, you will see things like that, right? So it's not a very enticing photo that invites a buyer to actually want to inquire about listing. So sometimes you have people in a photo, right? You have photos that are what we call as-is photos. That means technically no effort is taken to prep the house before you launch it on the portal, right? And you also have homes that look something like that, again, no effort being put in to prepare the home. Or sometimes where the angle of the photo being taken, it looks like perhaps, I don't know whether maybe you're selling furniture or something, it doesn't really position the home in its best light, right? So last, the question then is, as a home seller, if you are, let's say, putting on the hat as a buyer, what will attract someone to view your property? Right, and then the second question is, if we have a look at Property Guru being the biggest property portal in Singapore, how many listings are there currently? So if you look at condos and apartments, there's about 36,000. Landed homes, about 9,000, close to 10,000 listings. And for HDBs, also close to about 10,000, right? So there's a lot of noise in the market, basically lots of competition in the market, various districts, various property types, right? And imagine today you're a buyer. I think we need to put on that hat to think like a home buyer. What do I want to see? How does my behavior actually work, right? So if you're looking through all the ads, will you look at everything on the portal? Perhaps you don't have time. You want to just select a few key criteria, and then you punch in the filters and you look at what really catches your eye in terms of what shows on the property portal itself. Mainly the photos are the ones that will be capturing your attention, right? Later on, we'll of course be talking on a different media of marketing. If you all have been following our PropertyLimBrothers channels, you know we use video as a form of storytelling and social media marketing as one of the key engines as well on top of property portals. So we'll dive into that more later. And most sellers, property ads, if you just launch it on property portals, they don't really rank well as well. And then what is the potential of potential buyers actually looking at your advertisements, right? And in short, basically your ad is being lost in the sea of advertisements. So because of that, then that results in this end product, which is you get either no or little viewings, and sometimes this can drag on your property marketing journey for about a year, sometimes even up to 2 years, right? And the solution, of course, to solve this is then to have a solid brand positioning for your property, right? We don't believe in properties just being marketed hastily. We want to take time to prepare this, dive deep and then craft a very solid, aggressive kind of marketing funnel as well. So we'll dive into the nitty-gritty later, right? So this is of course, one of the solutions to solve this. And if you look at problem number 2 that we mentioned earlier, is you have lots of viewings, meaning maybe your exposure or your property is something that's very popular, there's not much stock in the market, right? And you get lots of viewers, but then you do not have a very solid offer. So let's look at this. Maybe, number 1, viewing experience could be a problem. Maybe, meaning there's actually a few different phases when we're marketing properties, right? So the first phase actually happens online on a digital kind of a content, property portals, it could be a video, and then eventually this buyer takes the effort to inquire, they come down and take a look at your home, and this is what we call the physical viewing experience, right? So this experience could not, maybe it's not, okay, this is a little bit like a cluttered home, right, to emphasize the point, or sometimes maybe the home is not cleaned up before you have viewers coming in, right? So imagine today, right, you are a shop owner, you have a shop front, right? So as Melvin mentioned earlier, there's so much different kind of a stock in the market. How do you stand out and how do you create that very nice home buyer experience for this potential buyer that's going to look at your product, right? Because now once you put your listing on the marketplace, it then becomes your product to sell. In fact, I think in Singapore or all over the world, property is definitely one of your largest asset which you're going to be putting on the market right now as your own product to sell. Okay, so the next concern is usually when doing viewings, of course, every home has its own pros and cons, right? So we got to then determine how does your agent then position your home so that it brings out much of the plus points. There's no home that's perfect. There'll definitely be certain perhaps factors that certain buyers do not like, but then sometimes it also boils down to then finding the right buyer that appreciates your home. So for example, what are some of these common factors that we look at? Number 1, very commonly done in HDB. Sometimes as you're a new couple, you buy HDB, you have maybe a 4-room flat, you have 3 bedrooms, you want to have a very nice walk-in wardrobe, so you hack down a wall, or perhaps you want to create a bigger living room and you hack down a wall. That's one of the common concerns we hear on the ground as we're showing homes. Number 2, if let's say when you look out of the window in your living room or sometimes in your bedroom, where do you actually face? Right, so sometimes it faces maybe an electrical substation, or maybe it faces another block or some other obstacle that you have to also overcome when you're marketing your home. Right, third one is bathroom ceilings. Sometimes there are blemishes, sometimes there are stains, but many a times actually when we visit homes, most of the homes are very well taken care of. Sometimes it's just because of Singapore's humidity, it causes some of these little blemishes to appear on the bathroom ceilings, and it might lead to the buyer misinterpreting this as you maybe having a possible leak in your bathroom, but maybe it's not the case, right? And thirdly, of course, as we mentioned earlier, the viewing experience, right, and being able to address buyers' concerns, right? And we'll dive deeper later into this factor as well. So then that, of course, leads you to either having viewings, but you're not getting offers in. And again, that creates a long drawn sale process in the end. So sometimes you might also even start thinking to yourself, is there something wrong with my house? Right? Why is it I'm not getting offers? Right? So there are many different reasons, as we mentioned earlier. But we'll look at the third one right now, and then later we can summarize. So problem number 3 is that sometimes, apart from the first 2 problems we saw earlier, the third one is you get viewings and you also get offers, but they're all far away from your price expectations. And why is this so? It could be a few reasons. So we'll just put up a few here just to illustrate. So number 1, maybe you are living in a slightly more boutique kind of apartment, and maybe let's say something with 20 to 30 units. So as Melvin mentioned earlier, there's this thing called transaction volume. So perhaps you bought your condo in 3 years ago, and 3 years later, once you have passed SSD, you're looking to sell your condo, but you realize when you ask your banker for valuation, it still appears to be you being the last done transaction. So there's no other transactions in the last 3 years, right? Then this causes this thing we call a valuation kind of a concern, because fundamentally that's how the bank's valuers would then put a valuation based on recent transactions. So you being the last transaction then causes this issue where your property seemingly hasn't seemed to appreciate in the eyes of the banks or the valuers, right? And because of this, sometimes it also causes an issue. I think some of these home sellers come to us and tell us maybe they've met other agents and they feel that just because of this bank valuation, I'm going to put the property up at this value, but actually maybe 2 blocks down, the properties are already transacting at a different kind of PSF, maybe 200 to 300 PSF more than the current one. So this is just how how valuation is done in Singapore. Right, so this is something to take note if you're a boutique project homeowner. This is one problem that you might face if you do not have transactions happening in the last couple of years since you bought the place. Right, so of course there's a solution to this. Later we'll dive deeper. And how usually we would solve this, especially when it comes down to boutique projects, is then we need to draw in comparisons from projects within the area, right, looking at their prices. So I'm just going to use one example here. So this is one of the properties in the Novena area. It's called the Ansley. It's a 4-bedder, very beautiful penthouse, gorgeous views, right? And almost every single bedroom in the home, living room, dining room enjoys very beautiful views. Even can see fireworks, sunset, you know. So these are all photos that some of the homeowners also shared with us. But the issue was that this home actually garnered over 100 viewings in the last 6 to 9 months, but there wasn't a successful transaction done. Right, so let's dive deeper and look at what were some of the concerns when we took on this listing. So the first one was that, as we mentioned earlier, you know, sometimes there is a certain need in the home to maybe have a study room. So from a 4-bedroom, what the homeowners did was they converted one of these bedrooms to become a study room that was adjoining the master. Right, so this posed a problem for the buyers who essentially they wanted a total of 4 bedrooms, right? And the second, so how we then solve this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like a problem solution kind of approach, so it helps to guide you guys along as well, right? So our solution for this was we talked to our drafting team, so they reimagined the floor plan, put back where the bed should go, right? Even down to the wardrobes, you know, where the door should be facing, where the wall should be re-erected. And not only that, we went down to the nitty-gritty detail because we realized and preempted that this would definitely be one of the key obstacles that maybe buyers would ask when they actually come for a physical viewing, right? And down to even getting an ID to quote us, you know, how much would this cost if I'm going to reinstate this bedroom fully with a door, maybe with and putting back the wall and things like that, right? So that's the costing, not a lot. Yeah, so a lot of the times on the ground, I think what we hear also, the buyers appreciate this because when they come for a viewing and they have a question, it can be answered right on the spot before the buyer actually walks out after the viewing ends, and they leave with a very good sense of how this home can potentially benefit their family and imagine themselves living here, right? So even down to things like we got our ID, or rather our rendering team to come up with some 3D visuals just to let the buyers visualize how you can potentially convert this back to a bedroom where the wardrobe goes, the bed, the side tables, and so on, right? And of course, the other thing was that we wanted to garner viewership during this period. And I vividly recall this, okay, that's my face right there. So I was the listing manager for this property. This video, if you're going to search on YouTube, the Ansley 4-bedroom penthouse, you'll notice that it launched on Circuit Breaker Day 1. So the video definitely also helped to garner viewership, right? So very beautiful penthouse. Look at this very gorgeous views. Let's take like 2 seconds, have a look here, right? MBS, unblocked views, right? So it also brings this home to life, especially I think during the pandemic period when we were actually marketing this home. We garnered quite a lot of viewings, inquiries, right? But we couldn't conduct viewing because, as I mentioned earlier, it was circuit breaker period, 2 months, no viewings, nobody could go anywhere in Singapore, right? And when eventually we opened up for viewings, I think it was July or August, I can't remember exactly, but somewhere during that period, what happened was that we started having viewings. So now what has happened is that, if you recall what I mentioned earlier, phase 1, online viewing, digital media, right? They saw the video, inquired. Now they've came down for a physical viewing, and then there were new obstacles that arise because during the viewings, we noticed some of the buyers started asking more questions with regards to the layout. So one of the questions was that why the home was done in this more longitudinal format, lengthwise. So right? So we had to find ways to also solve this obstacle on the go. So one of the things we noticed was that there is a specific reason why the architects developed it in such a way. It is what, in fact, gives this home its what we call like 80% unblocked views. That means if you follow me from the right-hand side of the floor plan, living, dining, your bedroom 3, the study room, which also can be converted into bedroom, and your master bedroom, all these 5 areas of the home all enjoy this unblocked view. But if you have a square kind of layout, that means half the home is kind of like parked behind, if you imagine, then half your home won't have the views, right? So you lose the exclusivity of this penthouse views. So eventually we did conduct about 23 viewings over 2 weekends, and this was sold. And if you look at the transactions, actually we sold it above a higher neighboring unit, right, in the same period of time. Right, so I think just to summarize, I think here are some of the key things that we should look out for when you're planning to market your property, especially in today's very crowded kind of a market, right? So first off, in PLB, we use this 3-step kind of methodology, basically to assess your property, right? And then to determine how we should dress it up, and of course, lastly, how to impress the buyer that's going to come to view the home. Of course, to understand more details later on, Melvin will share with you this consult link, right? So you can come speak with our team, understand more of how we market the properties as well. And to dive deeper into a few other key frameworks that we utilize here at PropertyLimBrothers, of course, is to impress, right? And then, of course, to also create a financial kind of understanding of why the pricing mechanism is right for this property. And lastly, of course, is the experience when the buyers come down. And we love the 3 kind of step approach. So these are the 3 key levers as well. So first one, of course, getting that exposure for your property online, right? And secondly, of course, is to design the viewing experience, how the buyer then enjoys your home when they come for a viewing so that they can put in a good offer. And lastly, of course, is to handle the concern of how the pricing mechanism of your property is done. So here are some tips if you're planning to market your home in 2023. So first off is to make sure your home is in a good state, meaning to say you remove any visual negatives, such as, for example, here you have some examples of walls that maybe require a little of paintwork to refresh it, right? If there are some floorings, for example, that are a little bit damaged, you want to also fix this because we want to remove any form of visual negatives that can impact the buyer's kind of a mindset when they are planning to make an offer for your home. And then, of course, when you're having viewings as well, you want to make sure you prepare solutions, as we mentioned earlier, to address potential concerns from the buyers. Right? So just to jump in for a quiz time, what is some of the most common concerns from home buyers? So we have 3 things, right? One being a unit that's located on a low floor. Second, bathroom ceilings. And the third one is house renovation that's maybe not to their liking very much. Right? So you can key in your answers into the chat box right now. All right, and so moving on, then we talk about layouts, right? So we want to also provide certain level of visualizations when it comes to different kind of layouts, providing 3D renders as well. That will then help the buyers when they are in your home, or if you have a certain very unique kind of renovation that you have done, then you want to make sure that it opens up, your home is opened up to a bigger pool of buyers that can then come to appreciate and eventually, of course, make an offer for your home. Right? Quotations, as we mentioned earlier, very important to help the buyer to determine there's not a lot of work that needs to be done to make this home suitable for their usage or their family's own stay. In one of these landed properties that we marketed at Jalan Bambong, there was this roof terrace. So creatively, our 3D architectural visualization team put in a visualization of how you can then utilize this roof, putting in a barbecue pit, putting in, dining areas, putting up like some kind of fencing to create a sort of garden kind of look, or even putting in like a trellis right here. You see some deck chairs to enjoy utilizing this space, and to also, most importantly, allow the buyer to visualize their family utilizing this space as well. Jump back to the topic on TOP projects. Here are some examples of how we have marketed some of the projects that were sold before TOP, right? So of course, the main obstacle when marketing these is that there are usually a lot of these listings online in property portals. Generally, you'll see photos that are either of the show flat, perhaps of the building structure, right? So for one example right here at Florence Residence is that when you filter to a 3-bidder, you'll notice there are actually 72 listings right there, just 3 bidders alone in one project. And how we then solve this and help our sellers cut through the noise is then to use a different form of visualization so that the marketing also stands out. So if you see right here, our 3D AV team, they've created this walkthrough video to help potential buyers visualize how this home potentially feels like once you enter the main door, go through the foyer, put in your shoes, and then you move on to the kitchen area, the dining area, and so on. Right? So this is one way that our team utilizes technology to help potential buyers visualize for this kind of projects or units that are not completed. Basically, you can't do a physical viewing of the property. This is the alternative to let the buyers get a better sense of what it feels like to walk home or go home from work into this very beautiful kind of home. And of course, the video is then pumped up. We use social media a lot. So if you are watching this, I think likely you might have seen some of our content on YouTube, Facebook, as well as other social media channels. Right? So we talk about these two main things. Number one, the latent buyers. Maybe they're not looking for homes, right? And because of our ads, they are being pumped in, they are targeted to different areas, districts, and demographics. Then it intrigues a buyer to then take action to perhaps inquire about the home, right? So this is above and beyond your traditional use of property portals, which we still use, for example, Property Guru, 99.co, SRX. This for the buyers, they are already on their home search journey. They have the intent, so they are intention-driven buyers who are already searching on the homes. So we have a dual-prong approach, and if you notice, we'll then expose all this to over 6 to 7 different channels of marketing exposure, right? And of course, the end result is that we want to then achieve a successful sale for the property, right? So the next topic is the projects that perhaps have just TOP'd, and how should you as a homeowner then consider marketing your property. Let's say you receive your lawyer's letter informing you that, oh, the developers are ready to hand over the keys. You can collect the keys, make an appointment, head down to the project to pick it up. Then how should you prep the home for marketing if you do decide to want to put it on the market? So most units, as we mentioned, when you collect the keys, it's a blank unit. So how do you then make this a more cozy kind of place, create emotional appeal for these homes? So one thing that you can do, of course, is to put in home staging and styling. So like this home right here at this is at Whistler Grand. So we actually put in home staging. We brought in furniture, the dining table, beds as well. So when it comes to home staging, we just want to share that actually it has two main purposes other than creating an emotional appeal for the home. I think the second one is a little bit more strategic. The reason for this is to also let the buyers feel what it feels like. For example, if you enter a bedroom, with a queen-size bed, how much space is left for the family to walk around in this bedroom, right? So it's to create a strategic positioning of furniture within the home as well. Okay, and of course, if you're marketing something a little bit more unique, like this property that we marketed at, I think this was at Katong Regency, we showcased the patio space, how it can be fully utilized, the kitchen, how it can also be opened up into a dry kitchen as well, right? And so again, this boils down to the very simple concept. We want to try and pre-solve and show possibilities when you're marketing your property so that you open up your property to a bigger pool of buyers. So the third category is, what if you're planning to sell your property, you just collected keys, and you have already put in a tenant. Now it's maybe 1 year from TOP date, right? And maybe perhaps your property has been tenanted out, you're collecting good rental. So one of the key things when we are handling tenanted properties is we have a strategy as well as to how we handle that. So if you're coming down for a consult, our consultants can share more with you on that. So usually when it comes down to rental, of course, you don't have control of how the property looks like. But again, I think it then boils down to also building rapport of the tenant, building a good relationship so that it's a win-win for all the three parties: the landlord, who is the seller, the agents who are marketing your property, and of course, last but not least, the tenant's schedule as well that we want to take into account. So like this property at Sterling Residences, it's currently tenanted, but we just seek the help of the tenants to basically tidy up the space a little for us to do a video shoot, because I think what's important is that we also respect the tenant's time. By shooting this video, actually what we then use it for is we can lessen the disruption to the tenant. We'll use the video for all first viewings to actually happen as much as possible online, bring them through all the digital media, the video home tour, we have the Matterport virtual tour as well. So this is a qualification process before we bring the buyers down, right? And of course, end of the day, it's also important to let buyers understand the analysis behind different homes. So like this one, what we did was we weaved in location analysis. I think this is extremely helpful for buyers, especially on the ground. If they are new to a certain township, then they are looking to move to this new town. It can help them better understand. Of course, secondly is the pricing mechanism of why this property is priced in a good kind of value and they should purchase it, right? So this is also something that we weave into our home tour videos. End of the day, this is to achieve a good selling price for our sellers as well. So of course, I think in the market today, ever since we started our first home tour back in December 2016, right now, a lot of agencies have also started doing home tours to value add to their clients. Just to share a little bit why I think PLB's home tours are a little bit different. We have positioned it differently. It's 50% basically analysis, 50% based on the renovations as well as other intrinsic properties of the home, right? And we also pump in things like, of course, 3D visuals to help buyers to visualize. We also weave in pricing analysis mechanisms to help the buyers also better understand why the pricing is as such in a certain project. Of course, last but not least, we also include such motion graphics by our creative team that creates a lot of interest when people are watching the videos, increases the retention rate as well and engagement, right? So of course, as a home seller, that is something that is useful as well because we can then also bring out different kind of perspectives right here, like we're explaining floor plans, we can show models of how the site plan looks like, etc. And of course, last but not least, we also have drone footages to create a more cinematic experience for home buyers as well. So right now, I think I'm going to pass the time back to Melvin, who's going to take us through PLB's methodology. Right, so Melvin?
All right, so I hope that you have received very good insight from Marc sharing on some of a couple of case studies and of course the methodology that PLB adopts to help our home sellers. And of course, we have this notion whereby we believe that we should not sell our home hastily. It should be done in a positioning as well as a strong marketing exposure fashion, driving from creating very good content to position the home to stand out from the crowd. And of course, thus, we believe that the old passive method will be weakened in the sense whereby if you're trying to compete with a sea of resale listings, this method no longer works in today's context. So on top of that, we're also very, very I would say passionate about how client servicing is being done, and we believe that in terms of the traditional model whereby traditionally a singular agent handles, of course, multiple deals at the same time, sometimes it can result in the fact that not enough attention is being given to a particular listing and a particular home seller or buyer. So since 2019, we innovated this inside sales team model whereby every home seller is being taken care of by a team in PLB, and they are all full-timers. Of course, we have 58 full-time inside sales team consultants as well as 55 media and HQ teammates that are working hand in hand. And you'll notice that actually every listing that we place in the market is being handled by sort of like a buddy system. So we have 2 listing managers taking care of the entire listing from start to finish, all the way from coordination work from the start to prep the home for sale, preparing the research, the home tours, the content output, together with our media and HQ team, as well as our client support team, to take care of the entire process from all the way from selling, marketing, negotiation, paperwork until the end whereby we onboard and offboard the client together. So with that, we believe that in terms of attention to details is definitely much more better compared to a one-man traditional model. Now, of course, how do we achieve a strong sale price for our clients is through very strong content campaign marketing, as well as transforming physical spaces to solve objections and obstacles, and not just doing it physically during home staging, but also using our architecture visualization that perhaps you've seen in some of our couple of our home tours. Of course, we have over the years also populated our statistics that we have managed to achieve a 91 days median period over the past 24 months to sell a home, as well as the fact that 62% of our PLB sellers, they actually achieve better selling prices. These are some of our signature strategies that we have, and one of our key strategies is, of course, using mood analysis. We want to see how do we select a good property with high appreciation potential characteristics. And this is of course done through our one-to-one consult session. And planning the next home purchase is equally important to selling your current home. And thus we use our mode analysis to a great effect and a great extent using PLB disparity effect kind of methodology as well to research for our clients. And we also have a deep dive lender mode analysis. Take note that we still have close to about 15, 16 webinars for the entire 2023 on a wide array of topics from landed homes, condominiums, HDB properties, as well as the generic market. Do also remember to sign up for our next upcoming webinars because there's going to be a lot of interesting topics, as well as our 2 new channels at PLB Insights, where we talk about new launches, and Nuggets on the Go, where we talk about everything under the sun on the real estate market, and we deep dive into a lot of key macro and micro factors. Myself and Marc were very happy to end off the webinar for today's session, and thank you for coming by on a Monday evening. Okay, we'll see you on the next webinar, and meantime, take care.